Good day. So excited to have you with us. And I don't know if you joined us last week, but if you didn't, please go and watch part one of this beautiful, awesome, amazing series called Habits. Today we're going to carry on with Habits part two. But let me introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. I'm Paul here from Life Connect Church, and thank you for connecting with us. I trust you're gonna be enriched and you're gonna have your life transformed if you apply what we're about to share with you. I just want to give a shout out to all our regulars out there. Thank you for your commitment week in and week out to join us. Thank you for sharing this message and for sowing into this ministry. Now, today I want to talk to you about making healthy habits stick. I mean, the unhealthy ones, the bad habits, they stick a whole lot easier. And the healthier ones, well, it's a bit of a struggle. And I hope today we give you a heads up and we give you some pointers on how you can make good decisions, good goals, healthy habits stick and actually become a way of life. Okay, so I want to start off by looking at your day, or generally what a day looks like. So most people wake up. I know some of you look like you're sleepwalking through the day, but most people wake up, maybe have a cup of coffee, then get dressed. Well, I hope you all get dressed. Get dressed, have something to eat, give your loved one a hug, grab the keys, ride off to work. Do your day's task, get in the car, ride home, greet your loved ones. Maybe if you're a wife, then you start looking at what's for supper. So you make supper, sit down, eat, tidy up, wash up, go have a bath, get into bed, read for 10 minutes, fall asleep. And that's generally most people's day. Yours might be a little bit different here and there, but generally we've all got this pattern to a day. And guess what? You do most of that without even giving it a second thought. In fact, Duke University did a little bit of research, and they estimated that at least 40% of your day you do without giving it any thought, because it's a routine. And routine is nothing more than habit. It just shows us that we can learn, we can adapt to do things that they come naturally to us. But then we've got to focus on what is good for us and what habits do I need to develop so that over time they just become part of who I am. And once I've got what I want to be in the future, who I want to be, how am I going to get to the point where it is who I am, that it's part of me? And this is what we hope to impart to you today. Now, last week we said that we all set goals, and we all set more or less the same goals for our life. But we don't all achieve our goals. Why is that? And we mentioned that it's mainly because of three reasons. And the first one is we focus on the what we want to do, but we don't understand the how. How are we going to get to that goal we set? How are we going to lose the weight? How are we going to get fitter? How are we going to get closer to God? How are we going to be a better husband or wife, or a better son or daughter, or whatever? The other one is we give up because we don't see progress fast enough. And the third one is a distorted image or identity sabotages our success. Because before we even start, or if we're a little way in, we think, I'm too weak, I can't do this, and we got all these excuses. So we discussed that last week. And we had a couple of big thoughts that came out of that. I'm just going to mention two. One thought was this: our life is the sum total of all the small decisions we make. Our life is the sum total of all the small decisions we make. And the other one was goals don't determine success. Systems determine our success. You can have as many goals as you want, but if you don't have a system in place to achieve that goal, you're never going to reach it. And we underlined that thought by a statement from James Clear from his book called Atomic Habits. And he said, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So having a system in place about how you're going to achieve goals, that's the critical thing. So we need to look at systems. And because we in a church setting, I want to look at maybe look at it from a spiritual perspective. Okay? Let's look at these systems from a spiritual perspective. Remember last week I said that successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. Do you remember that? Okay? So successful people are doing certain things consistently. Unsuccessful people try these things once in a while and give up or stop. And we looked at Daniel as an example. And I want to go back to Daniel today. Now Daniel, when we think of him, most of us think about him staring down those lions in the lion's den, don't we? And that was pretty impressive. I don't know if I could sit there or walk in there and not be filled with fear. And I mean, you've got a bunch of hungry lions around you, and it wasn't like gentle old Lion King. No, this was Scarface and the rest, and they were starving. And yet Daniel walks in and he endures because of faith, and he walks out. Okay? Now that's amazing. But greater than that is this. Daniel was chosen amongst 120 others to be number one. Okay? Now you've got to understand, the 120 were the best of the best. It's like us going to every school in this town and saying, give me your top 200. So we end up with, let's say, argument's sake, 800 young men. And from them, we choose 120. Except the figures in this case were much bigger because of all the young men in Israel who were taken into captivity. Out of all of them, 120 were deemed to be above the others. And Daniel was deemed to be above those 120. What was that? Why was that? What did he have? What did the king and his other leaders see in Daniel? It says in Daniel 6 verse 3, then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps. Okay, so not only was he now being compared to the 120, he was being compared to the other leaders in this Persian Empire as well. Because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Why did he stand out? What was so... We hear he had the spirit of excellence, or like it's termed here, an excellent spirit within him. And look here, if you got God in you, you've got an excellent spirit in you. But if you got a spirit of excellence, you honor God by doing everything like to the utmost. We believe in that as a church, in the spirit of excellence to exist here, so that people come in and they experience calm, they experience order, they see neatness, because everything we do and everything we display points to our Creator who is perfect. But he had this excellent spirit within him. It doesn't say he was exceptionally gifted. It doesn't say he had good leadership skills. But there was something that caused Daniel to stand out. What was that? Why did it become so popular with a king who usually wouldn't pay attention to the slaves and the servants? What was it about Daniel that made him stand out and rise above all the others to a position of prominence? Before we look at that, I want to tell you this, and take note. We're talking about creating healthy habits, becoming a better version of you. Not everyone's going to be happy for you, okay? Sometimes when you rise above other people, you make enemies because it reveals the shortcomings in their life and they feel uncomfortable around you. Now this is what happened with Daniel. Because he was so exceptional and he rose above the others, he created enemies, people who were jealous of him. And they were looking for a way to catch him out. But you can go and you can read in let me just check the scripture for you here, in Daniel 6 verse 4. And it says, at this the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel because they were jealous. And they tried finding charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs. But they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. So they looked at the way the guy works and, man, it was excellent. They couldn't find fault there. So now they're looking for a weakness in Daniel so that they can bring him down. And they come to this realization. You know what? He's crazy about this God of his. Maybe if we can touch on that aspect of his life, we can trip him up. Because he glorifies God. He honors God. Let's see what we can do. So they convinced the king to issue this decree that anyone who worships any god other than the king for 30 days would be guilty, okay, of a heinous crime against the king. Now what does Daniel do? Why is it that he stood out? And I want to present to you this theory today. It was because of his system. He had a system in place that made him stand out. And despite this decree that would carry a sentence of death, he stuck to his system. When the going got tough, he knew the only way through it was his system. This one small habit that shaped him as a young man, that shaped his identity and who made him who he was. This confidence he had in God, that is what he went back to. Let me show you his system. Daniel 6 verse 10. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, this decree by the king, he went to his house, where he had windows in his upper chamber open towards Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day, and he prayed and gave thanks to his God as he had done previously. Just as he had done before. He wasn't going to let an obstacle deter him from his system. He wasn't going to let what other people were trying to do stop him from being who he was, and that was a God-fearing, God-honoring man. He got down on his knees, not once a day, not twice a day, 3 times a day. He set aside time for God. He would go to God, I assume, with the problems of the day. He would go to God with praises on his lips. He would go to God with the petitions of his heart. He would go to God because God had proved himself trustworthy. And he knew his life is dedicated to God. And because it's dedicated to God, he stood out amongst the others. He prioritized his whole life around his heavenly Father. He lived a habit. He lived a system, fellowship, intimacy, time with God. Do not be surprised. The big things God can do with the small disciplines in your life. Do not be surprised. I came across a wonderful quote by Mark Batterson, and this is profound. It says, if you do the little things like they are big things, God will do the big things like they are the little things. So if you want big change, take the little steps seriously and do little things every day to bring about big change in your life. And God will take the discipline that you apply and, accelerate it and inflate it to make a big difference in your life. Your one small act of obedience on a consistent basis can bring about enormous results in your life. And I know we discussed this last week. You want to be a better version of you. You want to be a better father, better mother, better employee, a better boss, just a better person. We all want these things in life, to be better than we currently are. But then you've got to have these small acts of obedience that create a big impact. Now, my beautiful wife, and I work together, okay? But just because we work together doesn't mean we got this wonderful relationship, because what happens is your whole life becomes about work, and we take our work home, and at home we discuss church, and it was impacting our relationship. We still loved each other, but it was like the intimacy was busy slipping away. And so we decided that there's certain times in our house we're not going to discuss church. So after 5, no church. But we went a step further, and we decided we got to have more quality time together. And it's like rather busy schedules. So we had to create time. So we figured to ourselves, well, we have coffee every single morning. Whoever gets up first will go and make coffee. It's usually V. I'm the lazier one. And she'll bring my coffee, put it in bed. I'll sit in bed, drink my coffee while she potters around, does her thing. And we were having coffee anyway. So we just decided, why don't we take that and make it more personal? So we started every morning. I would get up. Either I would make coffee or V makes coffee, and we go sit in chairs downstairs, and while we have our coffee, we talk and we share. I'll admit, sometimes we've had disagreements over coffee, but the majority of the times we just enjoying each other's company, having a enriching, invigorating, very necessary cup of coffee to start the day off. And it just brought a new dimension to our relationship, but also our day. And now we do that consistently, and that one small thing has brought rich rewards for our relationship and how we go into every single day. Amen. Why don't you try that with your husband or your wife? Means you might need to get up a bit earlier, apply yourself a little bit. But I promise you, it's a good way to start your day. That, obviously, after you spend some time with God. I recommend that first. Okay, now, I assume you wouldn't have heard about a guy called Charles Duhigg. I think that's how you pronounce his name. But he wrote a book called The Power of Habits. And in this book, he spoke about a keystone habit, okay? It is that certain habit that if you have got that in place, it will propel you, it will launch you, it will take you to new levels, it will fundamentally change things. A keystone habit. Now the keystone habit, I promise you, if you apply it, will bring other beneficial elements to your life, just like it did with Daniel. Because his keystone habit, the one thing that kept him going, his system of praying 3 times a day despite circumstances, that was his keystone habit, And that is what launched him to the very top of a foreign empire that controlled that region. God has got a way of taking key things in our life, creating an awareness about them, and then expecting us to put an action in place to achieve them. Okay, we got to develop those things that we know, if I do this consistently, it's going to make a huge difference. It's going to change my life, change my family's life, change my future. But then you got to decide now, not what you're going to do, okay, but who you want to become. Remember, last week we said, let's keep on the do goals. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and discuss, or rather settle on who goals. Who do I want to become? Who am I on my way to becoming? What do I need to do to become a godly husband, a godly mother? How do I become a committed volunteer? How do I become a better believer who's a true follower? Who do I want to be, and what do I need to do? What is that one thing based on who you want to become, that one habit that you need to start? You see, you got to work that out. And if you know who, then we only look at how. Okay? Then we need things in place that is going to accelerate change in our life. But don't expect instant change, because to develop good healthy habits take a little bit longer than bad habits. They come really easily. So you got to just apply yourself based on who you want to become. And you know, when you're setting a goal like this, when you're exploring these things that you need to do, I want to encourage you to not make it a huge thing, to start small. In fact, it is so much better if it's small, because it doesn't put pressure on you and doesn't make you feel like a failure if you slip up once or twice. But you would just go back and you would do it again if it's something small. So, for argument's sake, you want to spend more time reading the Bible. So one small thing you can do is agree you're not going to hit the snooze button. That you're going to actually get up 15 minutes earlier, and before you turn to social media, you're going to read the Bible. Okay? Something like that. If you want to be someone who cares about others, then you decide, I'm going to write one note of appreciation a day. If you want to be someone who's more organized, you're going to say, right, I'm going to start every single day by making up my bed. If you want to be a godly example to your children, then you decide, right, I'm going to do a Bible reading plan with them, or whatever you decide. If you want to be someone who's more focused, then you get up and you write a priority list for that day before you start the day. If you want to be someone who's healthier, you decide, I'm cutting out any gas, cool drink, or whatever it is that's your weakness. You decide to cut it out. You see, you got to have something that you're working towards, but you got to take small steps to get there. The big ones tend to trip us up, and the small ones make it easier. And over time, those small steps, those small good decisions you made, got these enormous results that are going to have such positive spin-offs in your life. I wish that you could see how much your life can change if you would just develop healthier habits. So, how do we do that though? Have you ever given serious thought to, how do I create a new habit? Like I said, the bad habits, they just like so easy, they like everywhere, and it's so, you get caught up in it like that. But how do you create a new habit? Okay, first of all, like I said, you create a system. And that for some people is difficult because you believe you don't have a system. Well, you do. It's usually a more negative system, like you wake up late, so you're yelling at the kids, get up, get ready, we're going to be late. You're doing your makeup in the car, or you're tying your tie in the car. You like impatient in the traffic because you're now late. You see, by default you got a system, because that will become the pattern of your life. Leaving things to the last minute, getting up at the last minute, and it sets the trend for your day. So you've got a system, just not a very good system. So if we can develop good systems, we can have benefits that add to the life that we've been given, and add more life to the life that we live. Make it more joyous, more fun. Make it something not to endure, but a life to enjoy. But then we need systems. Any book on habits, in one way or another, will mention the concept of a habit loop. Okay, now I want you to listen. A habit loop. And a habit loop is, it goes like this. Okay? There is a trigger that results in an action. Okay? So let's say the trigger is you walk by the refrigerator. The trigger is you are bored. The trigger is you're angry. The trigger is you're hungry, or you're lonely, or it's first thing in the morning, or it is bedtime at night. There's a trigger. What action or what response results from your trigger? You see, any trigger always leads to an action. So, where do we go with this? If there's a trigger and there's going to be an action, you can control the trigger and the action. Let's say, for argument's sake, like you walk by the fridge. That's the trigger. Your action is you open it and you snack. Let's say it's bedtime for your kids. That's the trigger. So you play with them. Let's say your trigger is you are hungry, and so you have a second hamburger, or you eat a piece of cake that you shouldn't, or whatever. You get to choose the triggers in your life, and you get to choose the action, because every action has got a reward. You might get a sugar rush from having 2 glasses of Coke. You might get a dopamine boost by some or another action. You might get pleasure, or you get 7 extra minutes of sleep, or all these things go back to the trigger. Because if there's a trigger, there's a reward, and the reward, there's an action, and the action has a reward. And this is the habit loop, okay? Trigger, action, reward. So if we can influence what the trigger is, what the action is, and we can know my reward might not be immediately, it's going to be over time, we can fundamentally change our life for the good. We can make our life meaningful and become better versions of ourselves. So to start a new habit, okay, we need to do, to start a new habit, we need to know what our trigger is going to be, and what's the action going to be as a result of the trigger. And I want to ask you, just do 2 things with that. Make it obvious, and secondly, make it easy. Okay? To create a new habit, you've got to make it obvious, and you've got to make it easy. So let's think about being obvious, and let's give a few examples. Now, let's say you want to take vitamins every single day. So the trigger is you put the vitamins with a glass of water next to your bed. So when you wake up, what action? My vits. You see, trigger and action. Let's just say you want to decide to read more, and you're giving 15 minutes every night to read. So when you get up, you place the book on your pillow. So the next night you walk into your room and you put on your pajamas and you get into bed, you got to lift the book up. That's your trigger, which results in an action. I'm going to read now. You see, if you say, I want to write a note of appreciation to someone every single day, before you leave your desk in the afternoon, you put your notepad and your pen ready. So you walk in, say, okay, before I start my day, I'm going to write down a few things. And this is the way we go through life, okay? We choose what our triggers is, and we choose the response to those triggers, and we make it obvious, and we make it easy. We don't say to ourselves, I'm going to read through the whole Bible in a year, okay? We say to ourselves, I'm committing to reading a verse every single day. So we put the Bible next to our bed. Before we get up to have coffee with a husband or wife, we read one verse, okay? And I can guarantee you that if you just start off with one, it won't take long and you'll be reading two. And then it won't be long and it'll be three. And eventually it will be a chapter. And so you will build as it fits into your schedule. But start off simply. Let's say you want to let me think. You want to pray with your spouse, with your husband or your wife. And that's really difficult for us, isn't it? I don't know who I'm talking to out there, but, it's something that made me feel very uncomfortable. So I'm not going to say to you, go and start big. I'm going to say to you, start small. Take your wife's hand and just say, yeah, Lord, thank you that we've got a roof over our heads. Okay? Next day, Lord, thank you that we got food. The next day, Lord, thank you we didn't kill one of our children. And whatever it is, start small. It won't take long before you build confidence before God and in front of your husband and your wife, and you can pray longer and more intimately and with more intent. But start somewhere. I don't know, a lot of you, I suppose, are like me, and you want to get into shape, okay? So don't make the mistake of saying, right, I'm going to start off, man, I'm hitting 5 kilos or I'm doing 10 push-ups. Now, I can tell you right now, in the condition I'm in, I can't do 10 push-ups. I doubt I'll be able to do 5. 1, I don't know, my shoulder really hurts. But what I can do, I can lie down and stand up, okay? And then next week, I can lie down and push myself up. And before I know it, I'm doing 1 push-up, and then I can do 2. You see, because I started small. I didn't place this huge expectation and pressure on myself. I've started small, because small, good decisions over time have a tremendous impact. But then we got to do them consistently. And when we're doing that, you know what you're busy doing? You're building a system that's going to contribute towards a healthy habit. Folks, it is that simple. Other people, those people who are close to God, didn't get there just per chance. They consistently did small things. The guy's financially stable, consistently did small things. He didn't go out and blow his budget on a shopping spree or the latest vehicle or the best of the best. No, he built up over time because there was a discipline, there was a plan, there was a mindset, an attitude. And we're going to in the near future be doing a series on the things that actually release all of your potential, because you've got unlimited potential in you. Habits is just one of them. The others is attitude, beliefs, habits, and man, you'll have to tune in to hear what the 4th one is. We think it will run in March. But stick with us, listen until then, and you're going to be blessed. Okay, so We need a system. We need triggers. We need things that are simple and easy. But we need a who goal and not a do goal. And we need to start small. It says in Zechariah 4 verse 10, and I'm reading from the NLV, do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. Folks, decide who you want to be. Decide what it is that you need to do to get to who you want to be. What is it that you need to stop doing, and what is it that you need to start doing? Then you decide, what am I going to do about it? What is my trigger going to be? What action am I going to take? We in the process, you and I, of revolutionizing our lives and making us way better versions of ourselves with the grace of God and discipline, because we've got a system in place. Big changes are going to occur in your life and in mine, and I praise the Lord for that. Thank you. Bless you. May the Lord just shine his face upon you, and may his countenance rise over you. In plain English, man, may the Lord bless you out of your socks. We love you. Please, again, share the message. And if you want to sow into this ministry, the account details will be coming up right after this.